Hello and welcome to this Pt.3 inspection portal build video. This is the first of the two main sections of building up this third application. During this section, we'll focus on building up the actual core application from scratch, and in the second part, we'll be looking at how we're going to build up the workflow and integrate the workflow into this application and as part of the main process. So within this set of videos, we'll start by building, binding and styling the main inspection job page. We'll use a list with a generic tile and some icon tab filters. We'll set up the bindings and the formatters across these, and then we'll apply some CSS styles on top. After this, we'll import the application building blocks that we need for this application, and this will consist of the eLearning Pt.3 content building block, which is just going to be a big JavaScript file containing all of the functions we need. There'll be 5 functions laid out as skeleton code ready to build the logic into, and then on top of this we'll download 3 additional building blocks for working with the camera and uploading images, scanning a barcode, and capturing a signature. And then finally we'll build up the inspections detail page, which will then consist of writing the functions logic, so building all of the logic into the functions that are provided in the Pt.3 content building block. We'll then integrate the map component onto the page using the leaflet library, and then we'll import and integrate the remaining 3 building blocks for the camera, the barcode and the signature. So let's just have a quick look at how we're going to build up this inspection job page. We'll see that we're going to use a list with a custom list item, and inside that will be a generic tile. This tile will contain the header and the subtext of our equipment and the checkup date, and then under this, within the footer of the tile, we'll have some tile content, which contains a HBox, which will contain our icon tab bar and all of our icon tab filters. So let's jump in and get building. So here we are back in our environment. Let's start by opening up the app designer and creating the third application. We'll add it to the same eLearning package and we can save. Now let's build our application up. We'll use a shell, an app and a page component. Remember, you can always pick the full screen template to get this layout ready to go. So within our page, we're going to use a list, a custom list item. We'll have our tile, our generic tile, our tile content, and then we'll also add our icon tab bar and an icon tab filter. Now we will need 5 of these filters in total, so we can copy and paste them. So now we have 5 filters. In between the first and the second filter, we'll add an icon tab separator as well. Now we can start to rename some of our components here. So we'll add preview to the end of our icon tab bar, and then let's rename our tabs to reflect the content that will be within them. So this will be the tab submitted, preview. Our separator is within our preview as well. All of these tab filters are essentially going to be previewing the data within the inspection. So there we have it. Let's add our API, which will call in the data from our server script, which we set up in the previous video. So this API will be our get inspections, and it will call our get fieldworker inspections server script. Let's set it so the API triggers when we open the app, and we'll set the response to our list. Within our list, we can then set the model source to be the script response, which is the definition we set up in the previous video as well. And now we should be able to save and activate, and we can see the start of our list. Let's give our page a name by giving it a title here, My Inspections, and then let's give our tab filters some icons, text and keys. So we'll start by giving our submitted preview an icon. We'll just give it this placeholder icon for now. The text will be status, and we don't need a key for this tab. Let's add an icon for comments, the text as comments, and the key as com. We'll do the same with picture. The key as pic, the icon for the barcode, and the signature. Now, if we save and activate, we can start to see those tab filters are showing. However, our tile is too small currently. So to fix this, let's go to our generic tile, let's scroll down, and let's set a width. Now, here within the width, we can set a standard pixel width. So here, if we put 500 pixels, we can start to see how that generic tile now starts to fit the size of our screen. However, setting a fixed pixel width isn't going to work in a responsive design. So instead, let's use a calc. So here I can say set the width to 100%, but minus 35 pixels from that. And what this will do is always ensure that the end of the tile is 35 pixels away from the edge of the screen. We'll add a small style class margin as well around this, and now we have a nicely spaced tile in the middle of our list item. Now bear in mind, if you don't see a tile here at this point, that's simply because you do not have an inspection within your inspections table. So you can see here I have one inspection which correlates to the one inspection that we're seeing here. And you can always create one of these by going into app 2 and assigning a piece of equipment to a field worker. Now let's start to bind. Within our generic tile, we'll find a header property, and in here we can bind to our script response. In this case, we're going to bind to both the equipment part number and the equipment name separated by a dash. So if we use this and we save and activate, we'll see that reflecting in the tile. Let's also add a subheader here, and we'll bind this to the string checkup deadline, which will be followed by the property equip days until check, and then finally with the keyword days afterwards. And this will result in this as our subheader. Next, we're going to set up these tab filters so that they turn green whenever there's data present within the inspection. So if there are comments available within the comments property, we want this comment icon to show as green for this inspection. So how do we do this? It's quite simple. So if we come here to the icon color of our tab filter, we can see all of the different types of values that it can be. Of course, if it's positive, it will be green. Now you'll notice the icon color does not have a formatter. So in this case, we'll need to use our dynamic custom expression bindings, which we learned about in the previous app build in app 2, when we changed the interface in app 2. So let's open up the binding, and here we can use this. Now this expression binding is going to check if the inspection comments is equal to null. If so, keep the color as default. Otherwise, check if the inspections comments are equal to an empty string. If it is, also keep it as default. Otherwise, set it to positive. So all this is doing is checking if it's null or blank, in which case keep it as blue, otherwise set it to green. So if we use this, we save and activate, now we can start to test this functionality. And the easiest way to test this will actually be by adding a refresh button into our application. So let's go grab a bar, we'll set it to our footer, we'll put it underneath the list, we'll add a bar content, which will be on the left, and let's add a button to refresh our application. Let's give it an icon to refresh, and this button press will simply trigger our get inspections API call again. So we just write API and the name of the API, and that's it. We can save, activate, and now if we jump into our table and we edit this inspection manually, we can add a comment. So if we add test and we save the database, come back to our app and we refresh, now we'll see that the comment icon turns green because this property is not null or blank. We can of course remove this property, save, and refresh our app again, and our comments turns back to blue. Let's repeat this process for all our other filters here. So for the picture, the icon color will have the same expression binding, but it will just look at the inspection attachments property instead. The barcode preview will have again exactly the same expression, just with the inspection equipment barcode scan property. And then finally, for the signature, we'll simply use the inspections signature property. So now all of those are set up. If any data is present within any of these 4 properties, it will turn green. But we have a special case for our submitted tab filter, as there are 4 different states for an inspection to be in. An inspection can be assigned, submitted, complete, or rejected. And we want this tab filter to reflect a different icon and a different color depending on the status of the inspection. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we simply bind the icon to the inspection status, and then we can use the icon formatter to change the icon. So here within our formatter, we can replace this code with a few if statements, which simply returns a different formatted text depending on what the inspection status is recognized to be. So if the inspection status is assigned, we'll want the formatted text to equal this, and this is just a specific icon that shows an individual within the icon. For submitted, we'll show a pending icon. For complete, we'll show a complete icon, and for rejected, we'll show this close icon. So now we can test this out. We can see the status of our inspection is assigned, and so we'll have this assigned icon. If we change this to submitted, we save and we refresh, we'll see the icon updates here as well. Now to make this work as a color change as well, we can use a dynamic custom expression binding on the icon color. And that would look something like this. You can see that it's quite a long expression. We'd look at the status to see if it's assigned. If so, keep it as default. Otherwise, check if it's submitted. If so, show it as critical. If not, check if it's rejected. Show it as negative if it is, otherwise leave it as positive. However, to avoid writing this long expression binding, we can just utilize the same icon formatter which we're already using to change the icon itself. So we can add a few lines of code here. And it's as simple as doing this to reference the current tab, dot set icon color, and then we can just pass in the string value of the icon color that we want. So in this case we'll use default. And then we can copy and paste this line for each of our colors. So for pending, we'll set the color to critical, which will be yellow. For complete, we'll set it to positive, which will be green. And then here for rejected, we'll set it to negative. So now this one formatter is going to change both the icon and the icon color. And here you can see the status is reflecting submitted. If I change it to complete, and we save and refresh, we'll see that that also changes the color and the icon at the same time. We'll change it back to assigned for now. Now let's start to apply some CSS to our page to make this app really come to life. So first of all, let's add a style class to the page itself. So here within the page, I can add a style class. Let's call it base page. And then within the style sheet, we can reference this directly. So dot base page. And then in here, we can add any kind of styles that we want. In this case, I'm going to add a linear gradient background, and these can be generated online very easily. And this will give a nice fade between these two colors on our background, and we'll make sure that the background size is set to cover the entire screen. So now if we save and activate, we can see that background color has applied. However, our list itself is blocking some of the background. So if we go into the list, we can set the background design to be transparent. And this will then show that background around our generic tile. But there are a few additional things that we want to change here. First of all, we can see this line at the bottom, and we can see this grey bar underneath our tabs. So let's go about removing these. The easiest way of doing this is to run the app in a new tab, and then inspect the app itself. And then we can start to find the classes that we need to change. So in this case, we can select here to find our custom list item, and here we can see the bottom border, which is part of this SAP mlib class. So if we just take this class name and we put it into our style sheets, we can then override this style. So let's just simply change the border to be translucent, and then I can just copy and paste this into the style sheet. Whilst we're here as well, let's also remove this grey bar at the bottom of our icon. We can see it stretches the entire width of the screen. So we're going to look for that component by moving our mouse around. And here we found it, this box shadow we can remove. This is one part of the section that we do want to change. So let's again change this to a translucent color. Or we can even set it to none, which will work much better. So let's use this class. So now we have no box shadow there, and let's also locate this grey bar and remove that as well. So now here within the HTML structure, we've found this tab bar preview, and within it we have this background color, and this is what we want to remove in order to clean up our interface. So again, let's just change this to translucent, and we can copy and paste this entire class, and we'll just keep this background color which we want to change. So now if we save, activate and refresh, and remember sometimes you have to refresh twice, now we have a nice clean tile ready within our interface. Let's check out the responsive nature of our application now. So as we shrink down the size of the screen, we can see automatically now we'll have these tabs recognize that the screen is too small, and it will show these arrows to move the tabs back and forth. One thing to note as well is that currently we can click on these tab filters, and we don't really want to give the user this functionality. So let's come back into our tab bar component, and we'll simply set two of the properties to false, which will be expandable, false, and expanded as false. So now if we save and activate and refresh, we can't click on any of these tabs